Hey guys, welcome to episode 5 of the World's Rights podcast. Before we get started this week, I just wanted to provide a quick trigger warning for some of the content that we'll discuss. In this episode, we'll be talking very openly about our struggles and journeys of mental health, which will involve us talking about issues like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and hospitalization. If that makes you feel uncomfortable, then please don't feel like you have to listen to this week's episode. The previous 4 episodes we put out are much more lighthearted and might be more up your street. During the podcast, we discuss a number of useful resources, and in the description for this episode, as well as on our Instagram, we brought together some resources that might help you too if you feel like you need it. Thank you so much for listening, and please let us know what you thought of this episode once you've listened in the comments or by DMing us on Instagram. We're really proud of this, and we're really excited to share it with you. Enjoy the episode. Hi guys, welcome to episode 5 of the World's Rights podcast. As we said last week, this week is a little bit different. It's going to be a much more serious talk about mental health and that kind of thing. We've got 2 guests this week. We've got Kat's fiancé, Piers, and Kat's friend from uni, Sadie, who will introduce themselves in just a little second, and we'll give them a thing. I don't really know. You know, it's going really well. But yeah, we basically decided this was a really important topic to discuss because mental health is something that we have all kind of experienced issues with over the last few years and over our lives. We've known loved ones who have suffered. I just looked up some statistics, and 1 in 4 people will experience a mental health problem every year in England. And apparently 1 in 6 people report experiencing a common mental health problem like anxiety and depression in any given week in England. So it's a big thing, and it's definitely worth talking about.
I think the other reason why we wanted to discuss it was so that people can relate to us, or the other side of it is that if you are somebody who doesn't suffer with any mental health issues, that you can see it from our perspective, and that might help you with your relatives or friends.
Yeah, I think a huge amount of it is debunking the amount of pressure that people feel with mental health. You know, I think so many people just kind of think, oh, it's not that big of a deal, and that is obviously one of the biggest problems with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So we thought, or I thought, that we could go around and kind of give a kind of introduction to ourselves and the issues and our journey so far. So, Sadie, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So I am Sadie. I'm just going to introduce myself first. I'm 23 years old and I live
Sadie.
in Oxford. Hey.
Hi,
So it's like an
Sadie.
Alcoholics Anonymous
Sorry.
meeting.
Oh, also, Sadie, plug your YouTube.
Oh yeah, I also have a YouTube channel which I am going to start refilming on, which is The Real Sadie Kate, and I also have an Instagram, the.real.sadiekate. Thank you very much, Kat, for allowing me this plug. So my name is Sadie, and I have had mental health issues since I was, I'm going to say 13 or 14, but I don't think they really manifested themselves seriously until I was sort of 15. As a general brief overview, I think my GCSEs pushed me very much over the edge. I developed an eating disorder in the summer post GCSEs as I turned 16, which I spent a lot of time on holiday with friends, which just allowed it to get quite bad because my parents couldn't sort of monitor it. Within the year, I was inpatient in hospitals twice. I went to an inpatient hospital on a voluntary basis, and partway through that I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act, under a Section 2, because I wasn't cooperating with treatment. So I was sent to another hospital where they were much more strict. I hated it at first, then realised that actually they were helping me, got much better. Managed to get a job once I was discharged from that hospital, learnt to drive, did an A-level, which is a great achievement in itself, and managed to get into uni on that one A-level. And sort of since then I've been up and down, but mainly struggling with anxiety and depression, which I think for a lot of people, I'm going to guess, but please don't trust me, the absolute massive majority of people who struggle with eating disorders also have issues with anxiety and or depression. So that has been, so I have struggled with those sort of ever since then. Still go through up and downs. I am currently still with an adult mental health team in Oxford, and I'm having CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, every week, and I'm finding that is really helping, particularly with my struggles with perfectionism and things like that, which is definitely something I think we should talk about later. But yeah, that is my sort of little introduction.
Yeah,
Perfect.
That was
So
really good.
It was very elegant. I was actually afraid now. I'm very much afraid when it comes to mine. It's like, I am Piers.
And I did just look up basically I want to try and like kind of follow up what we're saying with statistics and stuff, so that
Please.
that we're not just talking out of our asses basically. But so there's been some research into people who have been hospitalized with eating disorders and things like this, and a really high proportion of people suffered with some form of depression and anxiety. OCD is also quite a common one in there as well, so it's definitely a common thing to happen, but obviously that doesn't make it okay. It's not nice, I can imagine. Piers, do you wanna?
I get.
Go
No,
on,
of course.
I was just going to say, I guess it would make sense with like the OCD side of it, with the eating and being really observant of what you're eating and calorie counting. And
I mean, I definitely had real tendencies of OCD while I was in hospital, which was really interesting. So I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to?
Yeah, no, I'm Piers. To be honest, a lot of what I'm going to say actually is probably already been covered by Sadie, as I said, far more elegantly than I'm about to put it myself. But actually, I kind of want to pull back. Everything for me really stems from this perfectionism side of things. As Sadie said, it's the idea of, when I was growing up, wanting everything to be as good as possibly. And, it was being from great parents who wanted me to do better and better. But the funny thing was that, like everyone, there's something that's not quite right with you, and you always stick on that one point. And for me, it was my weight. And I'd always grown up, being self-conscious of that. That had always kind of walked around with me. Everything I did, all the other guys would kind of, they'd be happy to take their tops off. But for me, it would weigh me down every single time, and it would be a really hard thing to stomach, really, or even talk about.
Even when you're at your like lowest weight, you still said that you didn't feel comfortable.
No, and all the way through, I had I had a little bit of puppy fat when I was growing up. When I hit about 15, 16, I decided for the first time that I was going to start starving myself to try and lose the weight, and I went down to about 10 stone 8 or something like that. So I was pretty light. And unfortunately, what that did was that then set me up for every single time I wanted to lose weight. I just starved myself, and that kind of created a run. And even though it's unrelated to actually what ended up happening to me, it actually that mental thinking is the very thing that set me up then to have troubles later on, because I just kind of swept everything underneath the rug. And then what happened was, at that point, as I say, I didn't really think anything of it, that everyone liked me looking nicer. When I was thinner, it was better. So I just related that to success. Have it being, a better build and stuff, the things I've always wanted. When I then started to get into relationships is actually when I noticed my issues. Because I think when you're in a relationship with someone, you have to understand yourself a little bit better, and I think you have to trust that other person. And actually, in fact, if you've got issues with yourself, you don't trust another person. So that's when all my issues started coming out. And first of all, in my first relationship, when I was about 17, that was serious, I didn't understand what was happening. I let it go, and she actually had to put up with a lot of mental health issues from me, with paranoia, not being able to sleep, overthinking. And then I didn't understand what was happening. 2 or 3 relationships later, I met Kat, and then it kind of came into sight that as soon as I got into this relationship, I had a very basic idea. I couldn't trust anyone, and the thing was, I knew it wasn't Kat. Kat was completely trustworthy. She had given me no reason ever to be paranoid or to have these kind of self-depreciating thoughts, anything. She'd never given me any reason for that. And I started going in on myself, and I started self-harming at that point to try and take my mind off of it, overthinking and just over-processing things to a point of ridiculousness. And I started burning myself with an iron. And that only went on for about 2 or 3 weeks before I knew I had to do something, and then it got worse, and I had to go to the hospital, and they sent me to A&E because I said, listen, I think I'm probably going to kill myself quite soon, and they sent me down there, and then I was with the crisis team there at Dunstable, Bedfordshire Hospital. Really good hospital, by the way. They're all really nice. And I was around there for 2 months with them. With the crisis team.
Sorry, I just realised you just gave a shout out to us.
I know, but they were really good. They were really nice.
Thank you for stopping me kill myself.
But, yeah, pretty much. And to be honest, they play with my medication. I'm on drugs now, and I haven't felt better. But the funny thing is that it's even uncomfortable for me talking on that level.
Although I was going to say it wasn't just as straightforward as medication. I mean,
No.
we probably all will relate to this and have a conversation about this properly. But Piers was actually put on medication which really messed with him and made everything 10 times worse. And that was at the point that you were going into A&E and they were looking at sectioning you and stuff. Was because the medication actually. Is that I'm not going to be able to say it. Exacerbated.
Yeah, exacerbated.
It's like, I can't say the word.
I it's easy for me to forget now what it was like, but I was really in hell. Every day. It didn't end from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep. I hated myself really, all the time, and as I say, it's a funny thing. It's like it's the idea of being perfect and everything being right. You kind of grow up with. I find it difficult even to talk about it because everything like that I want to sweep under the rug and not even face or acknowledge the fact it's there, which I think is part of the issue for everyone. And because I'd done that for so long, it had manifested itself into something hideous, really. And then it was too much for me to take, and that was the moment when I needed help the most. So yeah.
I think another thing is being in a relationship with 2 people with mental health issues, or if you are one person with a mental health issue and one person without a mental health issue, because they won't necessarily understand. Sadie got lucky. she found somebody who's very understanding.
But I did.
I do think a lot of people in relationships who suffer with mental health issues and their partner doesn't, it's probably quite difficult for them to be able to convey their thoughts and feelings to their partners. I mean, like I said with Sadie, I know it's bare minimum in a way, but you're lucky with Jordan that he really does understand you.
Yeah, and he's so supportive. I think that's what's so important, is that he knows me so well that he can't empathise because he can't understand how I'm feeling, but he understands that I'm upset and he knows how to help me.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is just because Piers and I suffer with mental health issues doesn't mean we necessarily understand the other person's, because every mental health issue is different. So I won't necessarily understand Piers's view on things, and he won't always understand mine.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because actually I've had friends in the past and still friends now that if I'm talking to them about eating problems, actually a lot of the things that we have now and the issues we have now are very similar, because they kind of, you can see where every single person's has bridged together, all these little parts of themselves.
Of course, and I think diet culture has a lot to answer for. But I also think it's really important to remember that when we're talking about we are, 4 people with mental health issues, that actually everyone has mental health and it fluctuates, and it is a spectrum, and just because you have a diagnosed condition does not mean that you are any more valid or any more deserving of support or anything, and I just think that's really important to just acknowledge.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Chris, do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Sadie and Piers for being so honest.
It's not an easy thing to do.
It's not an easy thing to do. It's not at all an easy thing to do. But I think we can all benefit from hearing each other's experiences and sharing them. And it's not easy to do, but it's good for in the long term. I think it's short-term pain, but we can all grow as people by learning from each other and listening to each other, so that's really good.
Well, yeah, and I was just going to say that actually it was the three of you that actually inspired me to go to the doctor for the first time about mental health issues, even though I'd been suffering for years, so it definitely helps. I can
and I think
for that.
Helping yourself as well, unless I'd gone through that, I don't know if I'd known myself so well. And actually now I'm in a comfortable relationship and I'm much more happy within myself. And I think a big part of that is understanding the good side of me, which I'd never acknowledged prior to that, but also all the things that actually aren't right with me that, okay, they aren't right, but that's not a big deal either. I think getting to know yourself actually helps you as well, talking about it. That's what a lot of sitting down with psychiatrists and things do to help.
Acceptance is so important. A non-judgmental acceptance, without being like, I did this and this is wrong and I'm stupid for feeling like that. It's just sort of like accepting that is who you are at the moment. It's not going to define your life, but this is how I feel and that's okay, and I'm going to work through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Kat, did you want to go or do you want me to go?
You go. I just I'm still thinking about what.
So mine's probably going to be like even less. It's probably going down in a sliding scale. And mine
that's
is just
why I was thinking
I'll
go last.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, honestly, I'm glad that we started strong. I feel like it's good that we started that way because it's only going to get more weird now.
Yeah.
As I say, I didn't like Sadie being right before me because it's like, oh, that was so elegant. It's nice, that direct correlation to my one. I was like, well, god damn it, Sadie.
Sadie's a pro at this.
You have very nice telephone manners, Sadie.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So So I have probably been. I think I probably had issues for a while, definitely from a young age, but they were quite. I think they were often passed off as being something else. I think they were often kind of
sarcasm,
glossed over and things. Yeah, so I was always really, and I guess still am, quite sensitive to things, and I get upset quite easily, and things like that. And I think when you're younger, that's always just put down to you being too sensitive. You shouldn't cry all the time, things like that. And especially growing up, personally growing up as a male, there's an expectation still in society that you won't be, that you won't cry, that you'll just have that stiff upper lip, that you'll push through it and it will all be fine, and that's how you should be because that's how men behave. And I guess I've never really fit into that pigeonhole. That's not really who I am. I am quite emotional, and so for a long while I was kind of led to believe that wasn't okay, and it kind of led to me developing different behaviors to try and hide that, I guess. So as Kat said, the sarcasm, the like constantly trying to like make a joke and throw a joke in there, it was all these things to try and I guess put a shield up in a way and kind of protects that more vulnerable side of myself, which I've been told was not, wasn't the one that I should be showing, and instead just try and make it seem like I didn't care about stuff and that I was actually fine. But that's all it was. It was just a shield, and it over a few years it got steadily worse. I remember once in secondary school, I didn't really have the right words for it, but I remember talking to my friend and saying, sometimes I just want to go to sleep and never wake up. and it was like the best way in my mind that I could describe what was going on in that moment. And I guess now I would look back and I'd be able to say, yeah, that was definitely suicidal thoughts. But I didn't know, I didn't understand them. I guess I didn't want to understand them. I didn't want to be vulnerable in that sense. So it was very much a case of no, I'm not. I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. I'm fine. And so I just kind of suppressed it as much as possible. But I was never really happy in myself. I was always kind of, the older I got, the more insecure I got about myself. The less I kind of wanted to offer up opinions. I've definitely become less confident in my body and the way I look over time. And that kind of all came to a head not long after I started university. I think it was being in a different environment to the one I'd been in for, however many years up till then, that kind of, I don't know, intensified everything, I guess, and made it almost more real, because I was out of my comfort zone and in a new place and doing lots of new things, and a lot of the anxiety and depressive thoughts and kind of lack of self-esteem and poor body image kind of all came to a head. And it was Christmas of that year, so Christmas 2017. That was it was just a really, really dark time, and I went, okay, we need to do something about this because we can't carry on like this. It's not okay. And I basically didn't really know how to talk about it with people. But yeah, so I kept it inside, came back to uni and booked an appointment with my GP, who was really good, and it wasn't at all like I expected him to be. I think I was expecting a lot of disbelief and like, no, you're fine. But I sat down and I tried to talk him through what was going on in my mind. I think I still wasn't happy using the correct term almost. I wasn't happy saying, I've had suicidal thoughts, so it'd be I've had dark thoughts or things like that. It was like using the code words and things like that. But he was really, I'm quite glad he was the one I spoke to, because he kind of saw exactly what I was trying to say and helped me access counselling in the first place. I was quite determined I didn't want to go on medication. So I went through 2 rounds of counselling while I was at uni over first and second year, which were kind of short-term boosts, but I guess in the long term didn't really make a difference, because it probably wasn't dealing with the actual issue so much as just kind of tinkering around the edges and helping me get through the day easier. And so I went back to my doctor in 2019 and sat down again and went, I think I need something more, because I don't think this is actually working for me. And it was at that point I started on medication. So I take sertraline, which is an antidepressant, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, if I've got that correctly, SSRI, and I take one of those. I've had those since March 2019. I had to go up a level on dosage because it wasn't quite working for me in the way that it should have been. And then I went through a course of CBT, which Sadie said is cognitive behavioral therapy. And then that kind of, since then, I suppose I've kind of entered a different mindset. I'm finally looking past the kind of things that have dogged me for such a long time and been in my mind. And I'm able to start really challenging some of the thoughts I have. I think when I was younger, I had an idea that I'd be able to fix it. That I could fix myself. And it's taken a long time to realize that actually that's never going to happen, because I'm not broken in that sense, and it's not something that can be fixed. But yeah, I think that basically sums up kind of my journey, if you want to put it like that. I've definitely experienced a lot of the perfectionism that Sadie and Piers have talked about. It's definitely something which has caused me a lot of issues over the year. I think it's kind of weird. So I describe myself as a pessimist. Anyone asks me who I am, but I think the reality is I'm probably quite idealistic, and I have an idea in my mind of exactly how the world should be and how things should turn out. And obviously life doesn't go the way that you plan it to in your mind or how you expect it to. So I feel constantly disillusioned and let down and disappointed by what life really is. And because life can never match up to that perfect ideal I have in my mind, it probably kind of sparks off this cycle of things being really bad and me becoming really depressed because of that, and so on and so on. So yeah, I mean, we'll probably come back to it and discuss it a bit more, but
I think also, Chris, as you said earlier, your very thoughtfulness, your sensitivity, those things that are actually incredibly strong qualities are actually more often not the very thing that ends up, me personally, weighing me down. That overthinking of things and me thinking, oh, did I do that quite right? Was I, did I do the things that I wanted to there, and so on and so forth.
That was kind of paranoia as well.
Yeah, and I'm not very good at putting things to. So I know people who can quite easily have a heated conversation or an argument or something, and they'll be able to put it to one side fairly quickly and move on. And I cannot do that. It will sit with me for hours, days. I'm one of those people who can be sat here and out of nowhere I'll remember an argument I had 6 years ago and think, oh my god, like, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Why did I behave that way?
It's an internal debate where it ends up you being the loser at the end of it.
And I wouldn't
you give yourself a hard time.
I
Every
think
hangover.
it's been a fight to try and accept those because I think at their heart they are good qualities to have, to be thoughtful, and to be caring and to be compassionate. I think they're really good things, and I guess for a long time I've basically tried to suppress them and not let myself have those feelings because it's not been seen as masculine or anything like that. It's been quite suppressed, and so now I'm trying to kind of undo that and accept them for being valid feelings that actually can be really useful in terms of being a good person and a good member of society, but also in a way that doesn't lead me down a road of overthinking, as you say, because that can be really toxic as well.
Damaging.
And
I just also wanted. Oh, go on, Piers.
So no, Sadie, you go for it. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I also think it's really interesting that you were saying, Chris, that your perfectionism and your ideas of how the world should be, like, I can totally relate to that. What I find really, really interesting is that for you, and I've actually never heard the two different sides of it, so for you that feels disappointing, and you feel let down and like the world isn't what you thought it would be, which I find so interesting, because for me, put in that same position, I don't feel let down, I feel angry. I'm so angry. I'm not disappointed in the world. It's like I can't comprehend. I don't understand why it's not, and I get very emotional, and I can't cope in these situations. So I find it so interesting how very similar feelings almost can just manifest in completely different ways.
And it's weird because I guess I have also had those moments of feeling angry, and just angry generally it's a weird kind of thing. I mean, it's not quite so related, but I remember last summer when the George Floyd things were kicking off in America and Black Lives Matter was kind of coming back to the surface. I think I heard about it on Twitter or something. I saw this name George Floyd trending. I was like, what on earth is this? And so I read into it and found out what was going on. And I haven't felt anger like that for a long time. And it really drove me insane almost for a week. I was just filled with this rage at everything because it was so. Again, it wasn't the way that I thought things should be. I don't think it's the way things should be. I think it's wrong in it virtually every way. And the fact that the world is like that could happen in our world, in the modern world, is it really, really fired me up. It was crazy.
Totally get that.
And then the aftershock of that. When suddenly people, the way that they reacted to it, instead of saying, okay, actually this is an incredible loss, we need to change things, a lot of people went on the defensive, saying, well, all lives matter. They took it into a completely different direction.
Yeah, I think that only made it worse. It was just this anger at everything. I was angry with everyone that I knew, even though a lot of people I knew were kind of on the same side, if you want to say that, as me. Like, we thought the same things. But I was just so angry because it was like the fact that anyone could go around thinking that was a valid way to think, to treat another human being. I was like, this is so wrong. And I don't think I've ever dealt with that anger. It's still there, actually.
Yeah. It's so difficult to comprehend. I'm sure this is the same for a massive majority of people, but I think especially it's exacerbated that it's so difficult to comprehend when people don't have the same views as you.
Yeah.
Do you get that? It's just so incredibly difficult.
And it's very weird because I don't think necessarily that I'm always right. It's a weird thing. I often think I'm wrong. You know, I don't have a lot of faith in myself, and I try to be quite humble and accept that I'll be wrong probably 90% of the time. But I think there are some things that I kind of hold as being very important, and you know, like it's the ideals, I guess, the ideals of how we should see the world, how we should treat other people. And when real life doesn't necessarily match up with that, it's like, no, this is wrong. You can't do this. I don't know what it is. It's very weird. Yeah.
I remember on Instagram I did like a questions poll, and somebody who I went to school with commented on it saying, please can you explain to me why saying all lives matter is a problem. And I had this discussion because I thought, well, they want to understand, so like I'll go through the reasonings, and they just, no matter how I explained it, they didn't understand. And that just, I got so annoyed, and I ended up blocking them because it's just like, I don't
I suspect
want somebody...
in that situation it wasn't really they phrased it in a way as if to say, let's have a rational conversation about this and an honest conversation about this. What they meant was, tell me what you think so that I can tell you you're wrong, which is a very different kind of situation.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of issues. This is getting really political. Don't know how you guys feel, but also like that is just like a fundamental issue of systematic racism and white privilege.
Yeah.
But there you go. This is ridiculously political now. So
I mean, yeah, it's true. I mean, we'll definitely come back to race in a future podcast.
Are going to be doing a podcast on race, episode 10. So, like we mentioned in the last episode, every 5 episodes, I'm just going to keep saying episode now, every 5 episodes we're going to have a serious topic where we just discuss that, and then 4 lighter hearted ones in the in the middle.
Honestly.
Do you want to? Sorry, I feel like I'm hosting this podcast, but do you want to tell your story?
Yes, please do. Sorry, I've spoke for far longer than I was planning on. My God.
Tangent.
God damn it, Chris! You prima donna. You. Sorry. Anyway.
Honestly, just monopolising everything. Honestly.
One of the reasons why I wanted to speak last is actually because, like I mentioned earlier, it was actually the encouragement I got from these 3 people to actually go ahead and go to the doctors and actually speak about my problems. And I didn't realise I had mental health issues, if I'm honest. Like, I guess I maybe had an inkling, but when I went to the doctor, he goes, yeah, you've got PTSD and anxiety. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And I never considered myself to be an anxious person. And then things started clicking, like the fact that I wouldn't leave the house without my earphones because I didn't like the idea of somebody talking to me on the street, or like I liked the option to, if I was in a public place, to switch off, and stuff like I also got diagnosed with insomnia, and a lot of the reason for that was overthinking. I just couldn't break the cycle, and meaning I just couldn't sleep. And they actually gave me sertraline, like Chris and Piers are on, to try and help me sleep, because they thought it could have been the anxiety side, and unfortunately that didn't work for me. So after like a few months I stopped taking it, and then I ended up on different types of sedatives, which I think actually getting my sleeping pattern sorted has made me a lot more like,
Absolutely.
a lot better.
As I kind of said earlier, you know, when you get into a relationship with someone, then you suddenly see all the parts of yourself you never saw before.
Yeah, because
and
I
they bubble
didn't
to the
even
surface.
realise that my sleeping issues were like a problem, and Piers was like, you're like sleeping for 3 hours a night, like how are you functioning?
You're waking me up at 3 a.m. and then I'd stay up all night, and she'd go to sleep. I was like, well, this is great. This is just amazing. It's like we're not living with this.
And I guess that's the thing, like a lot of the stuff I just thought was me being emotional or me being upset was actually a bit deeper than that. The joys of having a messed up childhood, I guess, had manifested in a couple of different mental health issues. But and then another thing was when Piers was unwell, and he was potentially going to be sectioned, that really then set me off, because I'd only just started going to the doctor about my problems, and then to deal with another person who's going through something so serious was really difficult.
And I think Sadie actually helped you.
Yeah, Sadie definitely did, and she spoke to you as well. But that was the thing, it was just like, I've finally acknowledged the fact I've got a problem here, and I've got to put that on the back burner now to make sure my partner's okay. And we were still early on in our relationship at that point, and I was speaking to his parents and stuff.
Everyone kept saying the honeymoon period. It's like, well, I'm in a mental hospital right now.
Yeah. It was not a honeymoon period.
It was not really.
And it wasn't the best way to...
Like, I disagree to a certain degree.
Oh, because we got it all out the way.
We got it all out the way. We got it all sorted, and then we went forward.
Yeah. And the other thing was, then we learnt each other's like triggers quite a lot and stuff.
And the thing is, at that point, when you can't help yourself, you can't help anyone else.
No.
You know? And so when you were both going through that, it makes it far more difficult. So say friends around you, like Sadie, who really helped us at the time, is an amazing thing to have. Someone who can relate and bring it into perspective and have a kind eye to it, really. And
I'm so glad I helped you guys.
Yeah,
it's so lovely to hear.
Sadie, I might also say I blame you now. We're engaged and all that. It's all down to you. All your fault.
Ooh, little Cupid here with my little
bloody hell
heart arrows.
I think the other issue I had was that with like a lot of friends of mine were going through really bad mental health issues. I think a lot of people, which I didn't know before I came to uni, a lot of people when they come to uni have mental breakdowns or realise, I don't know if it's because they're away from home pressures as well, sometimes they're more aware of their mental health issues, but I know a lot of my friends all went through the same thing at the same time, where they were going to the doctor getting help or they were declining in their mental health, and it was really difficult because you want to help everyone, but you need to, like Piers said, you need to help yourself first. And
that's a really valuable lesson to learn. Sorry, it was the
the
remembering that you have to. I think a lot of the time, and I guess it's kind of society that puts this in our mind. We shouldn't focus. We're told that we shouldn't focus on ourselves. We should think about others. We should do what we can to help our friends. We should be selfless and everything else. And being selfish is wrong. But that has the kind of risk that you neglect yourself almost. You go too far the other way, and you think, I can't focus on my issues because my friend is struggling. And actually, it's really important to remember that that's not always the case. That yes, you want to help your friends, you want to help people because you care about them, but you as yourself are so important, and if you're not in the right place and you're not helping yourself, you're going to really struggle to help other people. And I think that's just a lesson that it takes a long time to learn it. Honestly, I don't think I'm even halfway there, but
I heard a really great metaphor for it the other day, which I don't know if you guys will think it just takes it too far out the picture. I guess it kind of can in some ways. But when you're in an airplane and you watch the safety video, it talks about the oxygen mask, and it's like always attach sort your mask before helping others. And that is a very physical thing, and it's like before they are asking you to be so selfish that you put yourself before your children, and that I know it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
But it is just one of those things that I think sometimes might help people relate to the fact that actually, even in such a different and physical sense, you have to be selfish when it comes to health.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's wrong. I think it's really important to remember it's not wrong to be selfish sometimes. I think you need to embrace that. I almost have this thing in my mind where a day or two a month or a couple of days a month, I have my like selfish days, and I just kind of I just, you know, my phone will go on silent almost, and I'm like, look, right now no one else needs me as much as I need to just have some time to myself. And it might not be that I need to do anything. It might be that I want to sit there all day and binge The Crown or something, you know, something weird like that. I just don't.
What choice?
I love The Crown. I won't lie to you. As a socialist, I don't know how that quite
I was
fits,
gonna say, Chris, that's so surprising to me.
As a socialist, watching a thing about the monarchy is an odd thing, but maybe it just fuels my hatred. I don't know.
To be fair, I loved it too.
I think also what Chris was saying is, and Sadie as well, is a valuable point. You know, I think so much of my problem was as well that I wouldn't have days off. You know, if I took a day off to, I want to do this for myself, there would be a huge amount of guilt attached to that. Yeah. You know, I'd be sitting there thinking, I should actually be achieving something today, instead of just being sat here. And I think it's so important for people to say, actually, you know what, sometimes you don't have to that. You do what you want to, do what you enjoy without that guilt, because then when you come back to do other stuff, it just travels with you for everything you do then.
And the other thing is that, like, Piers has taught me that if friends said, do you want to go out tonight, I'd say yes, no matter what mood I was in. And I had a real issue saying like no, like, because I felt like unless I had a valuable excuse, like a valid excuse, then
even then though you would go to an absolute lengths. You'd be like, oh, okay, well, I've broken my leg, I'll still come, you know, I'm still in the hospital, but I'll be there in an hour, you know. You're like, no, Kat, you don't have to do that.
And
definitely. And I think go on, Kat.
No, it's just fine.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I think it's also really important to remember that the people who you think you might be letting down, if it's sort of something like, oh God, I have to do this, otherwise I'll let them down, that is the kind of situation where you know, you will find your real friends. And you know, if you don't have to explain to these people, I don't feel good, because in retrospect, first of all, I'm sure they would probably understand anyway, but after a couple of days of even if you think, you know, I've been the worst friend ever, just being like, I'm really sorry I had this, they, you know, these friends would be like, why are you even apologising? This is so
exactly. I think we've had a couple of those conversations, Sadie. Just like,
definitely.
Like, don't worry.
Just stop.
Okay.
And I think I've had similar things with people, definitely, where I've, when I was younger, I definitely used to, if someone said, oh, do you want to go to this? And I feel like I had to find a reason not to do it, and I'd be like, oh, you know, I'm not feeling well. I had to find something something that you couldn't argue with, because I felt that's what I do, rather than simply I don't feel okay, you know, like mentally it's not what I need right now. I was like, this feels really bad, so I have to try and find an excuse, or worse, try and go to this thing that I don't end up enjoying. You know, I end up hating every second of it, and I resent myself for making myself go there. And sometimes I remember thinking I almost resent my friends for organising this, and that's not fair, because, you know, I had the power to say no, and it's fine. And to be honest, I think your real friends will understand, and not even question it. Like, if you need that time for you, if you're not feeling well enough to go to something or anything like that, you can just say that, and you don't have to justify it to anyone.
And I think sorry, Sadie. I think the tragedy of it is as well that usually it's not when you first hear, oh, let's go to an event or let's do this thing, if it's in 2 weeks' time, it's not such a big deal, but it's as you get closer to it, you can cancel at the last minute, because that's when it really sits on you.
The last minute cancellations break your heart as well, because you're like, I literally can't do this, and I've left it so late that it's just even worse. You feel like you're letting these people down so much worse because you've left it last minute, but there's nothing you can do.
No.
Sometimes though it does pay off when your friends push you, because I remember it was actually a Yonica gig, and Yonica are one of my favourite bands, as everyone knows. And unfortunately, after being ill, with sepsis, as we've just like mentioned in previous episodes, I ended up having really bad immune system issues. So I became allergic to a lot of things, and I had a really bad allergic reaction all over my face.
Fucking pineapple.
Honestly, oh yeah, that is.
I want to actually buy a pineapple tree. She wouldn't let me, and she said, "Think about it. Think about it." I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, allergic.
Anyway.
But anyway, so I had this reaction. My eyes had swollen up, my lips had swollen up, and I had like blotches all over my face, and I wasn't allowed to put makeup on because obviously, makes it worse. And my friends were like, "Come on, let's go," and they want to take photos and stuff, and I literally just remember like feeling so shit and was just like, I don't want to take photos, I don't even really want to go to the gig, but like I've just got to go. And I remember
that was very hard for you that day.
I think I cried, didn't I?
Yeah.
Because I just
remember
didn't.
You being so upset.
I just don't feel like the others like understood at the time, but I went and had the best time, and it was one of my favourite nights. But so like it was good in one way, but I probably should have been a bit more like, because I think I said, "Oh guys, I don't really feel good. Like look at me, like I look like a reptile." But I should have been like, no, like seriously, I don't feel good. I maybe should have been a bit more like, this is actually upsetting me. Yeah, and obviously I am glad I went, but it was a lesson to be like, actually, I could have not gone, and it would have been okay.
Yeah, I think just going back to what Chris said about feeling like you have to make up a valid excuse, I think it's still so interesting that we feel like mental health isn't a valid excuse.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, so I have a job where at the moment I just work in a cafe and I love it so much and I really enjoy it, but there's been a couple of occasions where I haven't felt able to go. I just haven't. And for some reason, and I think a lot of people struggle with this, and I still feel the stigma. As someone who is very open about my difficulties and my issues and who's really able to talk about it, I still can't disclose. I feel unable to disclose to my boss and to my workplace that I have mental health issues, because I don't think it'll be taken seriously. To the point where when I've had to have days off, I like had to message my boss first thing in the morning to be like, "I'm so sorry, I've developed a really horrible cold." And she was, I mean, this is a little bit iffy. I mean, I felt quite bad, but she replied saying, "Oh, that's awfully quick to develop a cold." I was like, "No, I know, I'm sorry, but I don't want to tell you that I'm having a bad mental health day because I think that you'll think it's invalid." And that's nothing. That's not a reflection on my boss. That's a reflection on culture. So
also,
I think it is
COVID.
So
like, I mean, like, surely she should have questioned the fact that you could have had COVID if you said you'd quickly developed the cold.
I know, literally, it was during COVID as well. I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna be safe and stay at home. It's really weird.
But you're right. You are right about the that kind of thing. I mean, I remember Kat will know I used to have a job tutoring.
You love that job so much.
And it in retrospect, it's not a job that did me any favours on the mental health front. But I remember not long after I started on my antidepressants, I went in and I felt like I had to be honest with my manager and say, "Look, I've just started today these antidepressants, and I've been told that they might have I might have side effects from them. It might not, I might not feel so good. I don't feel amazing as it is. I feel kind of dizzy and kind of spaced out and things like that." And so I think the first question that the manager asked was, "Okay, and how long is that going to last?" And it was very cold and very removed from the facts that I'd gone in, and clearly I feel like if you've got to the point where you're on some form of medication, things are not great. You're struggling, and it was basically me walking in and saying, "I am having a really hard time right now," and to get a reaction like that was like, wow.
It's unacceptable.
Okay, it was horrible.
In any form, that is so unacceptable. It's really difficult to understand at the time that is unacceptable.
Yeah, and I kind of, the stupid thing was, because I was still in two minds about it, and I was like, I'm not sure this medication will work for me. I internalized what she was saying, and took that on myself, and went, okay, maybe I need to just suck it up and get on with it. And then the next time I was due to go into work, which was about a couple of days later, side effects still gone, and they kind of got a bit worse. So I had a bit of a migraine going on, which I get migraines anyway, but it was a particularly bad migraine. And I ended up calling in. I was like, look, I can't come in, and I made up something. I was like, oh yeah, I've really hurt my leg or something, because I just didn't even want to go near the issue that it was antidepressants and things like that. I was like, no, I've hurt my leg. It's a physical injury. You can't argue that. And it's like, oh, get well soon. That's really bad. And I was like, wow, okay, so if it's a physical thing, you understand that that's bad and you're sympathetic. If I come to you and explain that I've started on this medication because I'm having a bad time mentally, it's, when will that end? When will you get over it?
Totally get it. And I think there is still not just sort of bosses or colleagues or whatever not understanding. I don't know how you guys feel, but I still think there is this issue within, I don't want to say it because I really appreciate everything they do, but within the NHS and within our health service.
Yeah.
Because I don't know about you guys, but I've gone to GPs before and said I feel like this, and you just kind of get dismissed. And I've been to A&E a couple of times when I was really poorly with my eating disorder, and because I was told, if you have any heart palpitations, you go to A&E right away because you're at a dangerous point. Had heart palpitations, I could feel this, I didn't think it was good, went to A&E, and they were so rude and dismissive, and it was it honestly, like, I just don't even know how to explain. I just don't even know how to explain. And even though that was quite a few years ago, I still think that this is an issue. And and having said that, I appreciate everything they do for us. I really do. But I do still think it's an issue.
I think it's a great organisation, and I love the fact that we have an NHS, and I never ever want to lose that. But it's one of those things where the institution I think is amazing, and I'm so lucky to have it. But there are people within that who are
just people, isn't it?
Who don't understand and haven't got that knowledge and the right level of compassion that maybe you need. And
absolutely.
That is a problem. That is.
I mean, when I was going in, Chris, I remember really clearly that I went in first time. I said, listen, I've experienced this before. When I get into a relationship, I start having these issues, and I said, listen, I'm going to try and get ahead of this now, so it doesn't affect me like it did last time. It ended 2 or 3 of my relationships prior, and I said, okay, I'm not going to let that be the thing that's the problem this time. So I went in, and he gave me I forget what it's called, citalopram, and he ran me on that for about a month, and things only got worse. He said, don't worry, it's going to take about that long to start kicking in. Another month passed, and then things were much worse. So then he doubled it, and then he doubled it again.
Wow.
And then it went by about 3 or 4 months, and that was at the point then when
thought you had schizophrenia.
I thought I had schizophrenia, because I was thinking so irrationally and erratically, and it got worse and worse and worse. And it was at that point, that at the very lowest, where I had to go into him and say, listen, I think, in all honesty, I think I'm going to kill myself. I've taken in a length of rope in my bedroom. I had it stashed away. And I don't think I was actively going to do anything with it, but still it was there, and I knew it was there, and that was in my head. And at that point, then he acted. As soon as he thought, actually, he'd be a complete risk right now, immediately to himself, then he acted. As soon as I went in to see the crisis team, within 2 seconds they said, what medication you on? I told them, and they said, no, that can react badly and bring on paranoid thoughts in people.
Yeah.
And I thought,
to be honest,
great.
I also think it's worth noting, first of all, before I say this, medication can really help some people. It really can. It's definitely helped me. But it's also worth noting that every single, as far as I'm aware, every single medication I've been on, which is a lot of different ones, if you read the little booklet that comes in the prescription box, which you should, a common side effect is always suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
and that's fine. That is how it works. That's kind of how it works. It plays with the serotonin levels in your brain, and that is sometimes what happens. But if you have a bad reaction to that, people should not dismiss it and be like, you're on medication, that shouldn't happen, because it can happen.
Yes.
Another thing, actually, that's just reminded me. So I explained to Sadie about this, but so I'm on the contraceptive implant, and it would have been, so last October I had to get it changed over, but in the few months leading to it needing to be changed, I was like really, really depressed for no reason, like as in no, not like no reason, like there was nothing bringing it on, if you get what I mean. Like I wasn't like, my dog died so I'm depressed. It was just like out of the blue. And I had no motivation, no energy, nothing. Like I just felt crap all the time, and to the point that I actually even spoke to Pierce's parents about it, which normally I wouldn't, about stuff like that, but I was just that low. And it turned out it was just because I'd been on these hormones, which is similar to, you know, with taking tablets for depression and stuff, when your body adjusts differently. So when I suddenly started running out of these hormones, it just made me drop completely. And it wasn't until I got my implant changed, so I was topped up again on the hormones, and I suddenly felt fine again, straight away felt fine.
So it's definitely an interesting thing for women, or for people who not even just for women, but you know, being really politically correct, people who menstruate and have these hormones, these female hormones.
Or even people who take estrogen, or...
Yeah, exactly. The hormones play a massive role in your moods, and can definitely affect things like mental health. And can exacerbate.
Because obviously, like, people don't... When you have your period or something, if you've got a mental health issue, that your period can literally make your mental health issue 10 times bad for those few days or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. So recently, I think most people get this. When you're on your period, you bloat. Obviously, in the past, I've had you know, an eating disorder, so I've had a lot of body dysmorphia and body confidence issues and things like that. And when I bloat, and it's sort of a constant thing, and it's not just because I've eaten a bit more that day, I suddenly go into this horrible spiral of, I'm fat, I need to lose weight, why am I so lazy? And it's because I'm on my period. And that's not even to do with hormones, that's just a physical side effect of what happens. It's just my body.
And people, like, well, I say people, but it's obviously like men, don't, like, can't understand sometimes, like, that it's almost like an illness. You're like ill for a week, for a month, you're like in pain, you feel like crap, you're fatter than normal. Like it is like a pretty crappy thing to go
horrendous.
through. And sometimes
sorry, I feel bad for interrupting, but it's one of those things where I feel like a lot of men are still uncomfortable talking about periods and things like that. They still pull faces, they still sit there and go, oh, I don't really want to talk about this. And I've heard kind of some, like, my sister was telling me not too long ago about hearing people talking about periods and men saying, oh, can't you just hold it in? Can't you just not for a year? It's like,
that's the
are
best
you
thing I've ever
such
heard.
like? And I sat there and I was like, are you? Were they an idiot? Like, have they never had any form of sex education? That's so ridiculous.
It's
But
not
I
like
think
peeing.
it's really important that men understand that women and people who menstruate will get periods. That does happen. It is a fact of life. You cannot. There's no point being disgusted about it, because that's just childish and grow up. Basically,
Yeah.
you need
And
to
also,
understand
I
that
think
if you
this
ever want
happens.
children,
Yeah, like it happens, okay? That's what's going on.
Yeah.
So the best thing you can do is get over that as soon as physically possible and work out how to be supportive instead. That's what
and I think that
matters.
comes down to that
Yeah.
toxic masculinity you were saying earlier, Chris, again.
Yeah.
This idea of being a man and not liking to talk about periods and things like that, and not being
Although,
sensitive and happy, like, oh, that's nothing to do with me, and making jokes or whatever. I think so much of it we have to, especially as men, understand that it is okay to be sensitive, to talk about these things. It's like
and
we're
to challenge
lucky
it
now.
when you hear someone say something that isn't right. You know, it's when someone goes,
It's definitely,
they're not, you know, I was talking to her and she was in a weird mood. She's probably on her period. Like, that's inappropriate. Call out immediately.
It's lad culture.
Shut that
It is
down.
lad culture.
Although, the only
it
thing I
is.
would say is at school, I mean, the boys might not remember. At primary school, Sadie, I wonder if this happened to you, but I remember when we had the period discussion at school, they sent the boys out to go play football
Yeah.
and the girls to have a discussion on periods in primary school.
Yeah, we had that. I wasn't, oh, maybe it was, no, you know what's ridiculous is that it was in, I think it was in year 7 or year 8, so you're like 12 or 13. And I was like, Hans, we've all started our periods, what are you doing?
Unless you're
but yeah,
me,
it was girls only.
and I started at 14. I thought something was wrong with me.
Yeah, so that was fun.
I remember
Yeah,
that talk
but I just
happening at
think
primary
that's
school. I
really
remember the
bad.
girls being taken out of the room to have that talk, and I remember being. I think in our school we were sent out to play rugby or something.
Yeah.
So there
Be
you
a
go.
man.
Again, it's like,
There you go.
I'll go do something masculine. Go and throw
And
a ball around and fight for a bit while we talk about this girls' issue. And you don't need to hear about this. Cover your
When
ears.
you think about the amount of things that women have to go through compared to men, really we should have been taken down the corridor to the Period Appreciation Society. You know, you should all sit down like, so you don't have to deal with any of this. Childbirth, no. Periods, no. You just have to run along.
Yeah,
on
also
baby
just
time.
be grateful.
Perception.
If you want children, then these women are doing this thing. I mean, yes, it's involuntary. But they're doing this thing so you can have children.
Yes.
I think they shouldn't exclude boys from the period discussions. They should
completely.
They could
I think
have
it's
a
wrong
separate
because it
room.
reinforces in your mind from an early age that it's not an issue for men. It's not a male issue in any way. So don't worry about it. And that probably fuels the kind of the childish behaviour a lot of men go into of going, oh, I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just confronted
like-
it at an early age and said, here is a thing that happens to women and people who menstruate. You
Yeah,
need to be
and
aware of it
when
because
a-
you're going to come across it in life.
Yeah, when a tampon or a sanitary pad
my
falls
God.
out your bag at school, and suddenly you're like the talk of the
Die.
town, and it's like, oh my god, she has periods. It's like, yeah, cool, half the school population does.
I've never understood
Literally.
that. I've
Yeah,
never
so
understood
it's so
that.
bizarre.
And I
It's
mean,
horrific.
imagine growing up if you're a woman, a young girl going through that, and say it's just an all-male household that you're living in and there's no one to relate to, there's no one to chat to. It is so important at that part as a man to be open enough and to chat about that kind of stuff, because it must be so difficult for someone if they haven't got someone who's there to support them on that level.
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
Christ,
I
the
went
least we can do is be
shopping
understanding.
I went shopping the other week, and I asked my sister whether she needed anything, and she did that thing where she went quite quiet, and she got quite awkward, and in my mind I was like, okay, so it's going to be pads or tampons, okay, let's go. And she was like kind of awkward about it, and then she kind of quietly showed me this packet and was like, oh, can you get me some of these? And I was like, yeah, I can get you pads, that's fine, like just make sure show me which ones it is. And I actually made sure I wrote down like exactly which ones that she wanted, because I didn't want to get it wrong. I was really conscious. I was like, I cannot get this wrong. And I got to the shop and I got there and I was like, I really good. I got in, it's fine. And the ones that I'd been told to get and I knew I needed to get weren't available. They'd all been sold out. And so I was like, okay, no, I need to call her and work out what is an acceptable alternative, because I don't want to just pick one up and like, it's not like paracetamol or something. I can just go, I'll just pick up this brand and it'll be fine.
Super
like it's a
jumbo.
very different thing. I was like, I want to make sure I get the right one for her so I can be supportive in that sense. And I called her up and
Absolutely.
they did, people were looking around and like there were guys there with their girlfriends looking at me a bit like, what's he doing?
That's
Why is
not
he
okay,
doing that?
that's
And
not
it was
okay.
like, I'm just there like, yeah, I'm doing this. I phoned my sister
If
up
you
and
were
was like,
buying condoms, though, it would have been like no one would have.
it would have been like, hey, he's done it. Hey,
Yeah,
he's
exactly.
having some. But it was like, look, I'm going to do this. And I called her up and I got the ones and I made sure I got them. I was walking around holding them in my hand. Like I had no issue. Like had it in one hand while I was going to grab like, I don't know, some Pringles or something or something dumb like that. And I'm walking around and like, you can see people look at you and it's like, why have you got those? What are you doing? I'm like, look, I'm in a shop, I'm buying things. This is something I need to buy, admittedly not for myself, but for someone I care about. So I'm just going to do it. And look at me all you like.
No, It's so true though,
ridiculous.
because even not only for men, but
it's
for me,
awful.
I actually don't use. I'm just going to be very frank. I don't use tampons or pads. I use a menstrual cup because I just get on with it. But when I was buying sanitary products, I would like hide them in my shopping basket.
Did you find the first time you bought like period products, it was the most mortifying experience of your life?
I still, and up until I stopped using them, I still found it really embarrassing. Like I said, I was hiding them in my shopping basket under different things, and I would never go to like an actual checkout because I didn't like.
Yeah,
what's wrong with that?
self-checkout.
What's wrong with me?
Yeah.
What's wrong with me? That's so bizarre.
And the thing is, it's like dogs, right? Who don't. Sorry, that's such a weird.
Just saying that the man in the room did not say that.
Hang on. No.
I would not say that or make that comparison.
But like, hang on, like,
Wow.
Piers asked me the other day, do dogs get periods? And I
Yes.
said, yes, if they're not spaded. Wait,
Spade.
that's
Spaded.
spade. No, because it's not called. That's when you have it for a cat. What's it called when it's?
Spade. It's
Spade.
spade.
It's
still
spade. Oh, okay. Well, spade. I can be politically incorrect when it's about animals. Okay, guys.
Good.
My point is that Piers didn't know about dogs having periods, and he was like, "Well, what happens?" I was like, "Well, they just, they when they're in season, they is it in season or off season? In season.
In season.
They
Or on heat.
yeah,
Yeah.
they bleed, and they'll bleed on your sofa, and you just have to clean it up. But you can't really do much. It's just there.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you
That's the
can't.
thing,
put
is you're
a-
not going to get angry at a dog, right? You're not going to do it. You're not going to go, why did you do that? You're just going to accept it and move on.
Maybe
and that,
just don't
Yeah.
buy a white sofa.
it's weird that when that happens
Or a
with
white
people,
dog.
it'll be like, oh, why has this happened? How have you let that? Like, I remember hearing stories about like friends of mine who weren't expecting to go on their period, and they hadn't expected to happen that day, and then it did
Yeah.
happen in the middle of the day, and they didn't have any products, and I remember in primary school, I think they had to go to talk to one of the teaching assistants, and I can imagine that must have been the most horrible experience because they made it sound like it was trying to justify it almost and explain why you hadn't brought in whatever it was you needed that day. And I was like, this is so... You should not be doing this. This shouldn't be... Nothing about this should be... You shouldn't make it more stressful than you have to for people. And that was,
And I
like, ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think hopefully now we're moving towards it. I've certainly seen it in the last kind of 15 years where this equality side of things is getting better. It's still not there, but it's getting better. And I
Yeah.
think it should get to the point now where there is no difference between men and women, where we do accept all those elements of one another, where it is okay if you're not the most masculine man, or okay if you are, and take away the meaning of even the words masculine and effeminate. They don't mean anything.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you are is what
Yeah.
you are.
And
you
that's why
shouldn't
when
have any
people
problems
call
with that.
us the snowflake generation, I'm like, and so what?
It's the
We're
best
gonna
it's
be
ever been.
the most respectful in history, like as to date. We're going to be the most aware, and hopefully people start feeling better and living better
and
lives.
in turn, as a really lovely segue, this will help people's mental health.
Yes.
It will. And being more accepting and more aware and being able to more understand why people are offended by these things, and how not to offend will in turn help people's mental health.
Yeah,
Yes.
I hope so, and
Yeah.
I think it'd be really important. I hope that I get to see in my lifetime the point where saying I have depression is not just, oh, you're a bit sad. Oh, well, just be happy. Like, let's
Yeah.
just take that outside and get rid of it, because I really, really hope we get beyond that and understand it's a horrible thing to have to go through. I know what I've been through. I can empathize or sympathize. I can't remember which one I want to go for.
Yeah, I always forget.
I can't. I understand. Like, I can listen to my friends talk about this, and I can kind of understand what they're telling me, but I can never walk in their shoes, so to speak, and I can't know exactly what's going on inside their mind. But I know what I've got inside my mind, and I don't want anyone else to ever have to go through something like that. I don't want people to have gone through some of the experiences that I've gone through, and so that's why I will do my best to make sure that we can avoid that. And part of things like that is us for talking honestly about things and trying to remove the stigma that clearly still exists, but it's less I think it has lessened from what it used to be, but we've got a long way to go, and so
Absolutely.
we shouldn't ease up. If anything, we should be doubling down and making sure that every time this stigma comes up, we fight it, we challenge it, and we try our best to keep getting rid of it.
Absolutely, Chris. And I mean, I when Kat asked me to come on and do this thing today, I wasn't really comfortable with the idea of it, I have to admit, because I don't really like talking about it. But as you said, the value of us doing this is that some of us might be uncomfortable about it, and some of us might not have voiced some of the things before, but it's valuable because if anyone else, even one person, hears this and thinks, you know what, I will talk about my mental health now and make it more of a comfortable conversation, then that's a worthwhile thing.
Yes.
And every time we get a little bit closer to that, we're better off. We can only be working towards it.
The first thing I think, like with advice, is like talk to someone, whether it's a friend or the GP. And remember, you can take a friend to the GP to talk about your mental health if you want to. You can take somebody there. And that means if the GP turns out not to be a very good one or a very understanding one, you still have the support of your friend there to to remind you that that's not appropriate, and you can go and see it. Remember, you can always see another doctor.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing actually, to make sure that you don't get put off by one poor example or one bad. Like we said earlier, the NHS is a wonderful thing with many people who are really compassionate and understanding. But sometimes you find those people who aren't as compassionate and understanding and problematic. But don't let that make you think that everyone is that way. It hopefully is only a minority and a shrinking minority. So don't feel any less valid in yourself.
No.
Were there any questions you guys had prepared that we wanted to answer?
I think we got through most of them without. I was going to say, should we do a section where we ask each other questions, but I think we've gone through most things. What I was going to say is that we will be posting a lot of different mental health resources with the podcast, so wherever you locate it, if it's on Spotify or on YouTube, we will have some resources in the description.
Absolutely.
Is it Talking Space, which I think so you've used and Sadie's used.
Yes, yeah.
I think I've maybe spoken to them as well, who are adults. Are they the adult social services? Sadie, you know a bit more about it than me.
Yeah, I think they're sort of a halfway house almost between your GP and your local adult mental health service, and they sort of assess you and decide what you need, but they will refer you to local counsellors or to the mental health service, and basically they're a really good resource if you are at a point where you know you need to do something.
Yeah.
But there are also loads of other good resources and helplines. So Mind is a really great mental health charity, and they have lots of different resources.
They have an app.
Obviously, if things get really bad, then there's always Samaritans, which as far as I know are 24/7. And there's for eating disorder support or to support a loved one who you think might be struggling. Beat is a really great charity. And there are also some really great resources online. So for anxiety management skills, I use a website called getselfhelp.com. And that has a lot of anxiety management strategies, so definitely worth a look as well.
And there's also specific ones if you're in the teenage bracket. I don't think many of the people who listen to this podcast are teenagers, but if there are specific charities like Young Minds who deal with adolescents and children.
Yeah, and at universities as well. I know definitely at Birmingham, and I think at most others, if not all other universities, there'll be some form of kind of support service in place. There'll be probably a couple of different ones. There's normally one run by a university itself, maybe run by a department. I know at Birmingham we had a service called Nightline, and it was run by students, by the student union, and it was just a kind of, you could phone them or message them online at any point. I think it's 24/7, and they'd listen to you, and it was kind of like the Samaritans, but a little more close to home and a bit more kind of, they had similar experiences to you, so you feel more relaxed with that. So I think if you're at uni, then that's definitely a good thing to make sure you work out what kind of resources are available there. I know that some workplaces, my workplace is really good at, we have kind of counselling services available to us through work that are confidential and anonymous, so you don't have to tell your manager about it. You can access it yourself without having to go through anything else. Honestly, I feel like there's a lot out there, and they're not always well publicised. So it does sometimes require us to have to search for them. But they are there. There's so much help available, and it's growing all the time. And yeah, don't be afraid. There's nothing shameful or wrong in asking for help and accepting help. It's part of who we are as human beings, that we're not always going to be okay. There are going to be points where we need to ask someone for help. And you shouldn't feel ashamed of that in any way, shape or form.
And if you're not quite ready to like physically go somewhere or speak to someone, there's often like Facebook group chats of say you're like a sexual assault survivor, or there's different things, and a lot of the time there are charities that have like Facebook chats which you can talk to somebody who's gone through similar experiences. They're not going to be able to give you therapy or necessarily like medication or anything like that, but they might be someone to get you in the right direction.
And I think also talking to some of your friends.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, some of my friends when I was growing up, I was having mental issues. Obviously not all of them are going to understand sometimes, but there are friends that I had no idea they had mental issues going on, and we actually supported one another through a lot of things, and there's some of the best friends I have around now, and we made a kind of group between us really, and we bounced off one another and we held up to one another. I think that's so important as well.
Yeah
Definitely. And I guess one thing that I just remembered I had it, and Piers actually reminded me of that, was that part of my CBT was trying to work out ways of challenging the thought in my mind that my friends didn't care about, or they wouldn't be interested or want to hear about how I was feeling in an honest way, which is really stupid, because it's not like any of my friends gave me the impression that they would be like that. But I think that internally I kind of believed that I wasn't important enough to warrant any kind of real attention or anything like that. So I actually asked my friends, or a couple of my friends, to send me something like what they thought of me, and something nice that I had that I didn't realise about myself. Some of the positive qualities I had in my life that I didn't understand that I had. And I just had a couple of days. I was going to go for a couple of them, if that was okay with you guys, because
please.
Absolutely.
It was something that really helped me. So I won't name who it was who said it, but it was really helpful stuff. So it was you are kind, thoughtful, even sometimes too thoughtful, funny, and a great friend. You always check in to make sure I'm okay even when you're struggling. You're really good at cooking, which was an unexpected one, because I don't think I am. But there was, you have an ability to radiate positive energy and make people feel at ease even when you're not in the best place. You're good to become friends with. You're caring, devilishly funny. That was thrown in there. Thoughtful, enthusiastic, passionate, and generally caring. Supportive, empathetic, selfless. And it's things that I didn't believe that there were qualities that I had, and I guess that slowly I'm learning to accept those. But I think it was a difficult step to understand that there were those kind of positive things about me, and I'm really glad I took it, because when I feel really, really alone and I'm struggling, I actually look back at it, and I have it in this book, and I've written them all down, and I will go back to it and I'll go, you know what, you are loved, actually, you really are. And even if you don't believe that, you don't have to believe it necessarily. You don't have to think it. If your brain is telling you that you're not loved or cared about, actually you've got hard evidence that that's not the case. So you know what, find something like, if that would help you, find something like that, something physical that can remind you of good things, and the sense that you won't always be necessarily in a bad place, even if you are now. I think that's really important.
Did
Maybe
you guys
we could do that for each other. Maybe we could sort of do things that we think are really positive about each other.
I think that could be really good. I think it could be good.
Yeah.
We could
Really quickly.
I think we could maybe do like an Instagram poll as well on the podcast, saying if you're having a low day, like, you know, we will let you know the reason why we like you and why we're friends with you or something as well, to involve other people. Is there anything else you two lovely guests would like to say before we wrap this up?
Well, I quite like. Sorry, I realised that you said lovely guests and I piped up immediately. But I quite like Sadie's idea of sharing kind of positive things that we have about each other. So I think that could be quite good to like do now almost.
Yeah, I agree.
Cool.
I would love
that. Oh, cringe fest.
Okay, I mean, look, I'll start us off by say I probably know Sadie the least of anyone. In fact, I definitely do. I don't know why I'm saying probably. I think we've only met in person once, possibly, when I came to visit Kat at uni. But from what I've seen, what I saw of you that day, and what I've seen of you since on Instagram and YouTube, and what I've heard about the way that you have been with Kat and Piers, you are someone who is, I really get the impression that you're incredibly strong as a person, that you have overcome a lot in your life, and you really have a kind of strong sense of compassion that is really it's amazing. You know, it's really important and really valued, and you know, I can see why, you know, people like you, why Kat's been friends with you, why that's happened. So that's my positive thing.
Thank you so much. That's so lovely.
See, this is why I didn't want to do this, because now I'm gonna cry.
No, but this is a good thing. It's a good thing. This is a good thing. It's showing people that it's okay to cry.
No. I'm not ready.
Tough.
Okay, if I laugh, then I can pass it off as laugh and cry.
Yeah,
there you go. It'll be good. Look, you do you. Piers, you want to throw something nice into the mix? That can be about anyone. You know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I could go through each one of you. I really could. I mean, I'm going to reserve with Kat, because Kat knows a lot about that. Well, I could go through everyone, but you know, I'll start with Chris, and then I'll say for both of you, because I do know you both well. The truth is that Chris has always been the loveliest, most attentive person, you know, and you have been, Chris, all the way through. If I've ever asked you to do anything, you've always come at it with the utmost care, and much more than I think any person has ever done, really. You know, even my closest friends who I've seen for years and years would look over things. You would pay so much mind to them, and I mean, from the very first time we met, you know, you just were incredibly caring, and it came straight through. And as you say, you know, it's hard for you to see at different points, but to everyone else around you, I can promise you, it is as clear as day that you have all those qualities, and more than that as well. That, you know, every single one of them is incredibly strong. And this caring nature, this loving nature that's in you, and an incredibly bright side as well, and this kind of sarcasm and the funniness that comes out. You're incredibly funny as well, in a very straight-faced way. But as I say, every single act you have ever done makes people around you happy. It really does. You're just there's no negatives about you I could ever think of, really, to be honest with you, Chris. Now, Sadie, prepare yourself. I mean, Sadie, I've said it already. You know, when I was in my very darkest hour, you didn't have to be so kind to me. And you know, you didn't know me that well.
Yeah, I was going to say, you hadn't even really established a friendship at that point.
And at that moment in time, you actually, as I say, you supported Kat, but you might remember as well, we talked on nights, and you supported me, and you were completely unjudgmental, and you were actually very, very strong. Very strong, as Chris has said. I remember you talking about things with a kind tone, but at the same time you got all the points there, and you always made me feel better. And how you can, on one side, as you said, been through all this kind of stuff, you're struggling with a lot and holding a lot on your shoulders, but at the same time, for friends who are around you, have a selfless image, and always, you know, you were lovely to chat to. You're always so caring, and you could never see the struggle that you had, and you know, you wanted everyone else around you again to have a good time, And as I say, you made everyone else's lives just nicer. You know, whenever we went on a night out, whenever we sat there all together, you always brought something to it that was a really lovely part. Sorry, it's very difficult. I just descend into words of loveliness and this now, but it's all true. You know,
that's so lovely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to sit back. No, you're welcome, Chris, as well.
Shall I go?
Okay,
Sure.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with Chris as well, because like
He
you said,
sucks the most.
out of these lovely people, I definitely know Chris the least well. But yeah, from what I know about you and how the times I've spoken to you and seen you, particularly today, you are just so eloquent and sensitive, talking about really important and personal things, and I think that's such an amazing skill to have. And you're so sensitive, and you're very aware of what is going to be most helpful for people, and you are evidently a very kind and caring person, who will put others first. Like we were saying earlier, we need to be selfish, but I think you are a very kind person who puts others first. Always.
It's funny hearing you say that about Chris, Sadie, because I think a lot of that could be said about you as well. I think the way you talk about each other is crazy, because that's why I'm friends with both of you, because you have these qualities. You're very different people, but these qualities are, what I admire in both of you.
Yeah, and it's important to have friends around you like that, who are loving, who care so much.
Definitely.
Yeah, and thank you, Sadie. That means a lot.
Oh no,
Thank
you're
you so
welcome.
much.
You're welcome. No, not at all. I'm going to move on to Piers, because I want to save Kat till last. But Piers, you are just so funny, and I just love you. I love your presence. I love being around you so much. You're such a funny person, and you're also such a lightweight. I love it.
Yeah.
Such a flirt. You're so lovely, and I love how much you empathise. And yes, we've had lots and lots of talks where, bless you feel like I've really helped you, but also you are a really great listener and a really lovely advice giver, and you make me believe in self-compassion as well. I feel like you really help me feel that I am worthy of helping myself, which is something that I really value in you as a person. Yeah.
Thank you, Say. That's lovely. It really,
you're
is.
Welcome. You're welcome. And Katrina.
Oh no, because I'm already gonna bloody cry.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
She's already going.
Kat, you're just so amazing.
I'm a bad bitch.
You are, and you are the most amazing special cocktail maker. And I'm so inspired by your strength. Like, how on earth you got through life, you just get on with it, and you've come through so much, and I find you so inspiring. And the fact that you laugh and smile and have such a genuinely lovely time with me, and we have such a lovely time together, is I just value that so much. And you're such a good friend to me, and it makes me so happy that we've been able to support each other through so many things, including going to lectures in pyjamas. Turning up. Yeah, so but I love you very much, and I think I'm so grateful to have you in my life.
I mean, it's difficult with because a lot of the stuff you said, I completely agree, but in like reverse, straight back to you. And another thing is just like at uni, I mean, until I sort of made my family with Piers, with the dogs and everything, at uni I did sort of struggle with, like, I saw uni as my home, and you know, you were that homely figure to me. Like, you know, when we would spend time together, it did feel like a little family, and it felt like
Completely.
home. And especially like in first year, when you sort of, you know, I look at first years now and I think, oh, you look so young, like you've got so much life to go through and so much experience, and you look at them and you think like you're really like on ice right now, and you just got to try and find your footing. And I definitely think that not only did you make me feel like home, feel at home at uni, you also inspired me to better myself and you know, obviously tackle sort of mental health issues. And I think without that, I wouldn't have, you know, been with Piers and wouldn't have been as happy as I am now. And I truly believe that was a lot with your influence. And with Chris, I mean, oh God, like, how can I describe, you know, 10 years or whatever it is now? Oh, crying. Why? Stop crying. With Chris, I mean, it's impossible to describe, like, you know, over 10 years of friendship, especially as, like, for me, the biggest thing with my friendship with Chris is that he's been sometimes the only person on the planet that I've trusted. You know, more in my younger years, because I learned to trust people again in recent years. Thanks, Sadie and Piers. But no, with Chris, I mean, you've always been honest with me. You've always been caring. You've been forgiving. I mean, you know, the stupid twattiest stuff I did as a teenager, and he might have judged me for it, but not on a level that he shouldn't have done. You know what I mean? Like, there was always forgiveness there if I ever did something stupid, and a lot of the times he was doing the stupid stuff with me. I'm talking about you as if you're not here, but yeah, it's easier to not address you, Chris. No, and we've been discussing lately in the podcast that it took us quite a long time to be able to say, like, love you to each other, and for not have this stigma of you're a boy, I'm a girl, oh, like, does this mean something, like, for me to be able to say, no, I love you. And that's why when I say to people, you're my brother, it's because, you know, you have been more like family to me than a lot of my family have been. So yeah, I think that's
I mean, to be honest, I think the thing is that with anything I've said, especially, I don't think any words I could ever say to compliment anyone on this call or any of my friends would do them justice, or do them enough justice. You know, there's so many people out there with so many great things about them, and as I say, it's hard to a certain degree to voice all of those in one compressed moment, if you know what I mean. But,
yeah, definitely. I had to pause for a second. I wasn't sure I could trust myself to speak without just crying. Oh my goodness, that was intense. I realised I didn't finish my my thing, and that was weird. Piers, I was quite nervous before I met you. I think I'd heard a bit about you, but not. Obviously, hadn't met you, and I was quite scared. I was like, "Oh God, what if he doesn't like me?" What, you know, like, to be honest, and it's not a reflection on you in any way. No.
I was the exact same, Chris. I was the exact same.
That should be the other way around.
It was the other way around. I was panicking my ass off.
I mean, like, Chris, you should have been like, I'm the best. Like, I'm the best mate here. Like, if this guy's no good, fuck him.
Well, you can imagine Kat, everything she said about the pair of you, telling me all of this, which she's always kind of voiced to me, and then me going, oh yes, so you're going to be meeting them now. You're thinking, oh, no pressure. Ooh.
I was absolutely terrified, and it's not a reflection on you, but I was sat there thinking, oh God, what if he's a massive dick and I don't like him? What if that happens? What if I embarrass myself?
And we got past it.
And I went through, like, my mind was going a million miles a minute before I met you, and I think within, I don't know, probably about 5 minutes of meeting you, I was like, this is one of the most lovely people I've ever met. What the hell was I thinking? Like, you were so immediately friendly to me, and you know, like, I was just this guy who you hadn't met before. Like,
when did you meet for the first time?
I think it was at the gig.
I think it was a gig in London.
It was, yeah, Chris.
Yeah.
I remember you had a picture in your hand.
Yes.
I think you had a picture in your hand. You're on the right-hand side of the stage, and I was on stage looking at you guys,
Honestly.
and I waved. I was like, that guy's got a picture in his hand. I was like,
As is
that
often the
looks good.
case in my life, I was sat there holding a lot of alcohol. There we go.
I thought you meant a photo.
Why would he be holding a
yeah,
photo
I
at a
did.
gig?
No.
That's
no,
what
no.
I thought. He had like a picture of Piers. And
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was like waving.
I do
I
now.
wasn't
I
sure.
have one very close to my heart at any given moment.
Thank you for thinking of
Oh.
No,
As
I
should be.
Yeah,
A
Piers,
little sangria.
you were one of the most lovely people to me, and you were there for me and made me feel really relaxed because I was really out of my comfort zone. You know, I'd got on a train and gone to London and I'd gone on the underground on my own, which is an experience I really hate and find stressful at the best of times because it's a very intense situation to be in. And I had an amazing time. I think the abiding memory of how our friendship started for me is running down a train station platform at whatever time it was, me completely drunk out of my mind because you're in the other half of the train, and I'm like, oh, I've got to get down there, launching myself
Got
off
the
this train.
in
I
the
launched
middle of
myself off the
nowhere.
train, and that's a story
Wait,
we'll come back
on
to
a
one day.
platform, on a
I have
platform,
no
not
doubt.
like
It
in
was
a
insane.
weird way.
But you have always been so lovely to me and so kind to me, and I remember thinking at some point, you have no need to be like this. This isn't. You don't have to. You could hate me. I don't. But you haven't, and you've been really compassionate, and you've really inspired me to be more honest about my mental health and to kind of push myself to try new things, which I don't think I would have done if I hadn't been given a little push. So I am incredibly grateful that you are someone who's come into my life. And even if you and Kat ever break up or anything like that,
He had to
Oh my
say
god.
I'll be keeping you around, so don't you worry. Obviously, please don't break up, but if you do, just
Yeah,
just-
please
like-
don't.
You bloody bastard.
You're like, if
made
you
me
break
sit
up,
here.
you
When
better
you see this
break up
video,
for
you'll be able
me.
to see me holding back and just like, I'm not going to cry.
I love it.
But thank you so much.
He never
Chris.
cries, so I
And,
was I was looking at him like, cry,
Save
cry,
the,
bitch, cry.
Save the most intense till last.
Uh,
I obviously have known Kat the longest of anyone here, and it seems weird to me that after our first encounter, where I dropped you, I got my mum to drop you off at home because you live around the corner from me. I messaged you and said, "Oh,
So
hey, can I have your
embarrassing.
number?" And you said no, and thanks for the lift. So it's kind of weird to me that 10 years on we're sat here having this conversation. It's like, oh, weird how that one works out. You are one of my very best friends, and you have been there for me more times than you can realise. I was really distraught when you moved away
yeah.
from our school
was-
back in
that was a
back
shit
when we were at secondary
time.
school. I felt like it was my mind was I catastrophized it so much. I was like, what if I lose her as a friend? I can't do that. I don't want to do that.
That
And
was such a
completely
heartache.
ruined me. I couldn't deal with it. And I didn't get it at the time, and I tried to kind of suppress it, and it but yeah, I realized it's because you mean so much to me, and you have always been there for me, and like you said, you've been very honest with me always, and forgiving for when I do some stupid shit that isn't worth thinking about. You've always been there, and whether you've judged me or not, you've made me feel loved and cared about. And yeah, I think I have struggled for a long time to be able to tell people that I love them, because it's been part of that vulnerability that I've tried to suppress for a long time. But I do love
Yeah.
you, and you have been, honestly, you have been a sister to me, and you are a sister to me, and you always will be. You are part of my family, where, however you want to look at it, that's how I see you. And you have just been an absolute rock to me over the years, and you are incredible.
Aw.
And now I have to stop
I
talking
agree
because
with-
I might have just made myself cry.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
I agree with that. And yeah, Kat, you are adopted into my family as
Yeah.
well. And
Piers wants in.
Can come over to my house and drink fizzy pink wine with my mummy any day of the week.
Watch your mum get rat-arsed.
Yeah. Anyway, yes.
Aw.
That was a really sweet way to end the podcast. Now we're all in tears.
Oh, guys, thumbnail.
The
Everyone
vulnerability.
crying.
Here you go. See, this
is
is it.
lovely.
Vulnerability, and it's
Yeah.
fine. We embrace
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
Wait, everyone
Absolutely.
make a really sad face on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
I have a
stop.
double
they all
chin
look
going.
good.
That's not great.
Excellent.
Can I stop now?
Yeah.
Yes.
I looked
very
a bit
much
like
so.
a serial killer. I don't know why.
I just
Yeah.
looked confused, and I feel like in my eyes you could see me going, "What am I doing here?" Which I guess is not so unusual. But yeah,
Oh, man. That's fine.
Piers, Sadie, thank you so much
Thank you
for
so much, yeah.
coming on the podcast
Oh.
and
You're
chatting with
I've,
us.
I've had such a nice time. I want to come back.
I honestly,
Yes.
we'd love to have you
Yes.
back in the future. Absolutely,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
absolutely.
We should-
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. We're gonna start planning the next few episodes out, and yeah, we'll definitely love to have you guys back at
But yeah,
some point.
thank you so much for your honesty, and I hope that everyone listening that you have. Is enjoyed the right word? Is that the word I want to use? I don't know.
Experience. I don't know.
I hope you have. I hope it has helped you, or you've enjoyed listening to it, and it's meant something to you. I think we were all very conscious. We wanted to be honest and open about our experiences and our feelings, and it's not been easy for any of us, I don't think, but I think we've said multiple times that we think it's a really necessary thing to do, and I don't regret it at all. So
No,
you know.
no, absolutely.
No, it's been a really great and frank discussion. And I hope that we've shown people that it's okay not to be okay. And
Yes.
as cliche as it is completely okay not to be okay. And that we all have a mental health. There's a spectrum, and we are all somewhere on that spectrum. And your problems, however you feel, is completely valid. You do not need to feel like you need an excuse.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Right. I've got to
Sadie,
wrap
do you
this
want
up.
to
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Well,
Sorry.
before
No,
we do-
you go.
Sadie, do you want to plug your YouTube and Instagram one
Yeah.
more time?
Go,
I'd
go.
love to, one more time. So my YouTube channel is The Real Sadie Kate, and my Instagram is at the.real.sadiekate. So yeah, I'd love you guys to come along in my journey. I haven't posted much on my YouTube recently, but we're going to get back into it, and I'm hoping maybe Kat and Chris will let me put some of this footage on my
Yeah.
channel.
Absolutely,
Definitely.
Piers, do you wanna plug your stuff? I hear
Oh,
you're a bit of
yeah.
a musician
Yes,
from
yeah.
time to time.
The
Why?
best thing is
Are
when
you
you
in the
said
band,
that.
Piers?
Kat just turned around and went, "Oh yeah, she's my manager."
Why did
Bear
I
that
plug
in mind.
Sadie? I'm like,
Yeah.
Sadie, make sure you plug yourself. Completely forget. It's literally my job to plug Piers.
Literally,
And I've
Wait, that
taken your
sounds a
job
bit-
from under your feet. That's what
it's
I've done.
literally my job to plug Piers.
Sorry, that was a little bit inappropriate.
Guys, I'll invoice you later on. Okay, I'll send you the
laughed
invoice.
at that.
Um,
You started. I didn't laugh. Yeah, thank you,
Oh, you
Chris.
guys.
While my manager sits on the side now, really laughing at plugging me. Sorry.
Now your mum's calling.
Yeah, now Mum's calling. It's gone into disarray. Yeah. You can find me, my music, at Piers Nolan Music on Instagram, and it's also on Facebook under the same name. Or you can listen to the band at Toffee's Official
UK.
UK. Yeah, UK. That's what you have a
on
manager
Spotify,
for the last.
YouTube. He's pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah.
He's not too bad. Piers.
Thank you.
He's,
Thank you.
he's all right.
High praise indeed.
Speaking
Oh,
of mental health, I don't know if
actually,
I can do with that, Chris. I need bigger.
Hang on. This is a really good opportunity to actually plug a little song Toffees have, which is called Stronger, and it's about mental health. It's out on Spotify and everything, and also all the money that we receive from it goes to charity. What charity was it? Click Sergeant,
Just click start.
which is
Oh.
children's cancer charity, which I was gonna say is like
Well, it goes half to them and half to the crisis team.
that helped you.
Yeah.
And as
Oh,
you know,
guys, that's so lovely.
that's
So-
so
And we're
good.
working on a cheeky little music video actually for it, which we haven't actually
You heard it
told
here
anyone.
first, everyone.
Yeah.
Ooh, exclusive.
So
It involves me running with various amounts of out of breathness. So
I'm ready
you
for
just
that.
get ready for that.
I am
But
ready.
yeah, if you want
Okay.
to follow me on anywhere, you can hit me up on Twitch and Twitter and Instagram and anywhere, and I basically do this but in a different form. Kat, you don't do much these days, do you?
No.
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 Just manages a great guy, great musician. You might have heard of him, Piers, great guy.
I love this. It went from a love fest, now it's like, well,
Yeah, we've been too nice to
Yeah,
each
no.
other now.
You got to counterbalance it. But yeah,
Oh, I love
Um,
you guys.
Love you too,
Okay,
We
Sadie.
love you
love
too.
you. We
I
love
lo-
you.
but yeah. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Sadie and Piers, for being here. Kat, it's been an experience with you as always, and we will see you all in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.